Most noticeable to me that despite all the FUD spread by Microsoft, when they announced WVD, it still includes a multi-user remote desktop server. And that to me really feels like they've been misleading their customers.
Where they have all these pieces like Azure as a hyperscaler cloud and still work with a on-premises server version of that and combine those two.
Absolutely. We're using a lot of the tribal knowledge that the Frame team has around public cloud, around APIs. If you look at the way that we've built clusters in public cloud, which we discussed earlier in different podcasts.
But bottom line, it's always finding the delicate balance between the freedom that you want to provide to your workforce or to your colleagues within the organization, but also protecting, well, the common interest, right?
At the third stroke, it will be...
Hello, beautiful people, and thank you for tuning in to the September edition of the EUCdigest ThrowDown. We have some great items on the agenda today. My name is Ingmar Verheij, and just like the other episodes, I will be your host, trying to tame a group of excited and hopefully outspoken EUC experts. Today, I am joined by Eric, Jits, and Kees. Last episode, we had some great conversations from our Clubhouse voice room. So this month, we've done it again. Everyone is free to drop in, join us live while we record, and you have the opportunity to participate and share your opinions. Now, this episode will be available on our YouTube channel, so to which you can subscribe, and on your favorite podcast player. So thank you for tuning in, sit back and enjoy. But first, let us highlight our sponsor who makes it possible to create another episode of EUC content.
Liquidware provides adaptive workspace management solutions for all Windows desktops. The company products encompass all facets of management to ensure the ultimate user experience across all workspaces, physical, virtual, DaaS, or in the cloud.
Guys, it's so great seeing you on my screen. I'm really looking forward on hearing your unfiltered opinions and candid responses. But first, how are you guys doing?
Yeah, good. I'm glad to be back, missing the last one. So cool.
Good seeing you back, Eric. Mr. Microsoft.
Yeah, indeed. Congrats, man.
Thank you.
How's the onboarding going so far?
How do I look?
You've been busy,
Fire.
right?
You look like you're drinking Kool-Aid from a fire hose.
Somewhat.
There you go.
Okay.
But, okay, thumbs up, thumbs
You
down.
need to be gentle, right?
Are you enjoying Microsoft so far? How's the ride?
Yeah, no, it's been a really good ride. Not to say that the last ride I was on wasn't good, but they're really, really punctual into the processes and get everybody ready to flight instead of just get into an airplane and start flying.
All right, good to hear. All right, Jits, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, excellent. Nothing to complain here. Looking forward to this throwdown.
How's your bike?
My bike, oh man. Well, we only got an hour for this recording, right? So
Yes, sir.
I did 4 tours with the bike. Well, a new bike, and now the front suspension is broken. So
You ruined it. I don't know. I don't know.
Guess so.
Topic for another podcast.
What
Case?
are you laughing, Case? Nothing to laugh
I'm
about.
just, I appreciate the fact that you're getting in motion again. It's just funny that you broke your bike after 4 rides. So I hear everything's
Impressive.
fine.
Yeah.
As you can see, we're I'm finishing up the home office. Hopefully, it's done in a couple of weeks, and I'll be fully operational here. I just wanted to say thank you to our big friend Johan for a actual signed copy of the VDI Design Guide Part 2.
Pretty
Awesome.
cool. Pretty cool. And a very subtle placement near your patent. Well done. Both of them. Johan,
One
I
of
haven't
them.
checked the mailbox, but yeah. What? Oh, okay. Good. Let's start with the first topic of today, and that's from our friends from Alpharet. Liquidware announced a new version of their application layering solution FlexApp called FlexApp One. Unlike their traditional FlexApp, FlexApp One wraps the whole application layer that contains one or more business applications into a single executable, which can then be delivered to the endpoint by the user, either by copying the file in your Explorer. You can put it in OneDrive, Dropbox, or use solutions like Windows Endpoint Management. Now, advantage of this approach, obviously, and also the signature feature of FlexApp One is that you can have offline scenarios, because all the data, all the code required to run the application can be downloaded to the endpoint. And also, removing applications will be simplified because deleting the executable will leave no trace on the target. Downside is that once the file has been sent to the endpoint, there's no version control, no insight into the license usage, and admins cannot really prevent the user from copying the file into a private machine and use the application there. It also reminds me of Data, but without the isolation layer, because there is no isolation in there. And since FlexApp One is a VHD that's mounted to a device, it's also quite similar to perhaps MSIX AppAttach. Now, Kees, you were quite outspoken on AppAttach previously. What do you think of this one?
I guess I'm outspoken about just about anything, so that's not a real surprise, right? So, having an application in a single executable actually enables you for that offline use case, which makes sense to me. But if I look at the downsides of what you just mentioned, not being able to control the app or the license file or any of the Microsoft Asset Management kind of laws that they lay down on us, I see this as a potential use case, but very niche use case as well. And I think that kind of combines the vision on application virtualization, application delivery in general, with solutions like this, is that we've been able to cover about 80% with what we have today. And to me, this is just a solution to cover some pieces of that 20% that we had left, if that makes sense.
So then clever use of getting into that niche. Eric, you're at Microsoft, MSI AppAttach. Do you see like similarities, or is it too soon being at Microsoft?
No, but just to correct you, sure, I do work at Microsoft, but everything I express is my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm looking forward on hearing your thoughts, Eric.
Okay.
You can be unbiased and filtered.
To give you a correction, it isn't Windows Endpoint Manager. It's Microsoft Endpoint Manager based on Intune.
There you go.
To have my vision, yeah, I totally agree with Kees on this, actually, because I don't see this from a new point of view, new way of working. Why are we doing it? Just for the 20% of legacy you still have, which probably already have been moved to something new? So yeah, I would agree with Kees' perspective, and that's mine, not per se Microsoft ones.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yet,
yeah, maybe you remind me, right? It's been a few days, a few years, to be honest, that I'm out of this world and installing a complete VDI solution for an end customer and doing all the groundwork, basically, right? So. And I know, like in the old days with application virtualization or isolation, it was supposed to bring us much more flexibility and easier manageability. Is this still a big thing for most organizations? Because it also increased the complexity and also in complexity from a manageability point of view. So it's always finding the right balance between the flexibility or the functionality that you deliver to an employee within an organization. I mean, an employee within an organization doesn't really matter whether the application is isolated. All he or she wants is an application that performs well and provides insights or access to data, or provides some sort of a layer that they can alter the data. And I was also thinking, and maybe I'm jumping from a couple of questions to another, but one thing that struck me here, as you were mentioning this, Ingmar, is that this also allows you to work offline.
Yep.
But then again, the majority of the applications working offline, you still need the data somewhere, right? I mean, of course, there are always scenarios where offline, I mean, I can work offline in an airplane.
No, well, so I would say, I mean, the delivery mechanism could be a OneDrive, right? Or Dropbox or any other cloud repository. So what if you deliver your application through OneDrive? This is also where you store your data, or cache.
Yeah, but
keep it offline. So then,
like
what
I
if you
said-
have Cloud PC, or what if you have a native Win 10 device? I think this is a clever. I mean, I think maybe it's a niche, but it's a clever niche because this way you can deliver your applications to everyone essentially. And if you are a small shop, or you have maybe a small line of business or a small team within an enterprise that has to be agile and nimble, you don't want to give them any managed devices. Here are the apps that you need.
Yeah, coming back
the
to
one thing that you need to be is a purely Microsoft shop, right? And what is the added value of adding a technology like this? If you're already on Intune, if you're already on OneDrive, if you already have managed desktops as such, being virtual or non-virtual. So I'm just, while I see the value of delivering applications in a single executable, we all know how well that went with VMware. Look where ThinApp is today. So while I do see some use cases, I do think that if you're a mature Microsoft shop and you have Intune in place and you have OneDrive in place, you might not be needing something like this.
No, agreed on Intune. I think OneDrive, who doesn't have Microsoft? Small, medium, large.
Sure, but coming back to what Jits is saying, if you need a data repository, how are you gonna fix that in? Not
for offline.
Without having any security constraints.
Could be the same
compliancy
OneDrive, right? But then again, yeah.
Use SharePoint. Okay. Good follow-up question for when we meet with our friends of Liquidware, who, as we just heard, is our sponsor. So, guys, please tell us more. We are intrigued.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Well, while we are on the topic of Microsoft, I don't think we've done an episode where we haven't discussed Microsoft, but they're back on the calendar, or back on the agenda. Microsoft made Windows Server 2022 generally available for mass consumption. It has deepened integration into Azure. It contains Azure Arc for centralized management and storage migration service to migrate data from native file servers to Windows servers. Security has been improved, and it now includes a secured core. Lots of great innovations there. New HTTPS, TLS 1.3 are encrypted by default. Well, a lot of funny, good stuff in Server 2022. But, however, most noticeable to me, that despite all the FUD spread by Microsoft, when they announced WVD, it still includes a multi-user remote desktop server. And that, to me, really feels like they've been misleading their customers and forced them to Azure Virtual Desktop, or WVD back then. Because on multiple occasions, I've seen, Microsoft technologists, global black belt technologists saying that there is no future for multi-user server operating systems. So Windows 10 was the only platform from now on. And there came the multi-user version of Windows 10, which is only available in Azure. And it's not the first time that an antitrust case has been filed against Microsoft for abuse of its dominant position. And I'm no legal expert, but to me, this smells fishy. Having said that, guys, what are your thoughts on Server 2022?
Great security features. and I like the terminal server part.
Look at that! Look at that face. He's super impressed. Can you guys tell? So,
go ahead, Case.
So the one thing that I wanted to say about this, and I get your thoughts behind this, Ingmar, but what if it's the other way around? What if Microsoft really thought that the previous Windows Server version would be the last kind of multi-user server OS, and they did push Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows Virtual Desktop, but now they have to revise that strategy because they're not seeing a massive adoption in terms of Windows 10 multi-user in Azure. So it could be, adjusting strategy in hindsight, as Microsoft has done before as well. So it's not per se that they're misleading. It doesn't have to be that they're misleading their customers. It might just be that they realize that the strategy they've taken was either too aggressive, or they're not competitive enough in pricing, or for whatever reason, they're revising their strategy and saying, well, you know what? We made a boo-boo there. 2022 will have multi-user as well, because we've seen that pushing customers to Windows 10 multi-user is not being adopted as fast as we expected.
Yeah.
Would
that make sense?
Could be. I think they're no. I think I'm 80% with you on this. I think they have more like this insight of a hybrid workforce, and that they follow that path, and making this available where it kind of fits into the whole strategy of bringing this hybrid workforce forward into their strategy and move as one, where they have all these pieces like Azure as a hyperscaler cloud and still work with a on-premises server version of that and combine those two, because there are still a lot of things for a lot of customers. You have to keep in mind that they're not willing to go to cloud or can't go to cloud for what reason.
That's and Eric, that's what the market's been saying for the last years. Ever since it has been announced, ever since WVD came around, and there were those conferences where this was said. It was essentially hinted at the multi-user version of Windows Server. There is no future. So if you are on Horizon providing remote desktop services, or on a Zen app or virtualization, Citrix virtual apps and desktops, let me say the correct term here, then maybe there is no future. I mean, just the way they've positioned it is just, I'm sorry, but I find it kind of misleading. In case I totally agree. I mean, they made a boo-boo, or they tried something and they failed. So I'm glad to see that everyone is getting corrected here. And there is a future, and hybrid is the future, or full on-prem, whatever you choose as an organization.
Maybe it was just a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? But or maybe, I'm not going to ask Eric about this, but what if there is a more like siloed approach within different teams at Microsoft? So maybe the server team just pushed forward despite maybe a strategy from others within the organization. Now, of course, everything needs to be aligned on top, right? But in the end, it's just an organization, right?
Yeah.
Politics.
I can't take back what's been said in the past, but I think they made a boo-boo.
Right.
And de-strategized this.
Who's they?
They Microsoft. Okay, let's wrap up.
Just kidding, man.
I mean, beyond my rant of RDS and multi-user in server, anything else that I missed on server 2022? I'm sorry, I kind of just like it's been out of deploying servers. That must.
You don't have it up and running yet?
No, but I'm on
still fiddling around with Windows 11.
No, I'm on the cloud endpoint side, so I'm not doing anything actually with most Azure related stuff, and more or less everything that is a device identity or security where I work with, and not from a server side.
Good. Then let's keep it at this for server 2022, guys. Anyone listening? If anyone has something else that I missed on server 2022, I didn't do a lot of effort on this, by the way. Leave a comment on YouTube, send us an email, send us a tweet.
Yeah,
whatever.
Exactly, Imar. Let this be an invite, maybe to one of the MVPs to dedicate a full EUCdigest episode on server 2022.
Or maybe not. Maybe we should move on. Can I do one more rant about Microsoft? Yes, I will.
Yes, you can.
Thank you. Microsoft has defended a policy decision for its Power Platform, which is part of Office 365, to let end users bypass Office 365 admins and make their own license decisions. Essentially, the change, which was scheduled for November 19, so that's still in the future, would let users within an Office 365 organization purchase their own licenses for Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, all those things. And Microsoft said, well, we are empowering business users. But I mean, why are admins unable to disable this self-service feature? And Microsoft claimed that, they're just being responsive to their customers who have requested this capability. And adding that organizations can rely on their own internal policies and procedures and communications to ensure that those individuals making self-service purchases are complying with company policies. Now, this was published or covered by the Register, and they said that there was already a user voice feedback request to add the ability to block this self-service purchase. It had back then already attracted over 2,500 votes, and by now Microsoft has yielded to the pressure and given admins the veto right. Microsoft's kind of finding the boundaries of what is tolerated by its customers, because I know it's a clever way of selling services and driving adoption, because end users can just, buy the service that they want. But if you're bypassing administrators, don't think of them as like the admins from hell, but they also have to ensure that the company data is secure and it remains compliant, right? That's also their role. And, you know, an organization is at risk. I find that interesting.
So
I see your smiling case.
Yeah, I'll take a first step here.
Please do.
And then Jits and Eric and yourself can fill me in or correct me if I'm wrong or thinking in the wrong direction here. So what I find interesting is that Microsoft is actually doing these first steps to see where they can go with self-enablement and kind of self-sufficientness of organizations. And I think that and we've talked about this before, but I think part of this is due to the massive kind of scope of end users that we need to support as IT in general. And like we talked about this before, you'll have on one hand the old school like task worker type folks that get confused when their core application gets another icon or a different color. And on the other hand, you have fresh out of school grads that want to bring your own device, bring your own apps, want to build their own apps, are able to tap into Power BI and take full advantage of this. And, you know, I guess that with self-enabling folks in such a way, you're kind of bypassing or going beyond that concept of that broad scope of end users that we need to support. So while it's a great option for people that are kind of used to Power BI or Power Apps and Flow, which, you know, realistically are more not consumer grade, but more business unit driven applications because they're able to build out their own applications based on whatever they need. I guess that having a toggle switch, if you like, per BU or whatever kind of object you have to set authentication authorization is something that was necessary. So I guess this is a great way of checking with the overall customer base, how far Microsoft can go, or anybody can go for that matter, when it comes down to consumerization of services. I guess the community spoke and Microsoft kind of reverted that change and said, well, again, you know, sorry for making this boo-boo, we'll fix it. And here's kind of the toggle switch that we need or that you need.
And I don't want to be the cynical guy here, right? And just complaining on Microsoft.
Oh, you are.
I mean, I know I am, and I'm Dutch, so I'm using that as a poor excuse on doing so. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do think it's needed, right? Because otherwise admins will say like, I don't know it, so I'm going to shut it down. So you need some way of enabling citizen developers and you know business users on getting access to these great services because Power App, Power Automate, Power BI makes perfect sense. But the flip side is, what I said on security and compliance, in Power Apps, there was a massive vulnerability a couple of months ago where all data was essentially open to the public, right? And that's business data, and that's very critical data. So it's great that you can build applications on your own and tailor it to your organization's need, or maybe just for your BU. But there has to be some considerations. It seemed like maybe the product managers didn't realize what the potential effects are on giving this to everyone, the self-service purchase.
And they did.
So, sorry?
You haven't read the whole article and you haven't read the docs, then you would have known that you could categorize them, tag them, and as an IT admin still have the ownership on what is not and what will or what might be.
By now,
so there's more granularity.
That's after the correction, Eric.
No, but the article you were referring to is an article from 2019. Actually, I just looked it up. So that's a really old article, and it's been reopened again, as been the past month, because of this. But there are some things done.
Good to hear that some things have been done.
But bottom line, it's always finding the delicate balance between the freedom that you want to provide to your workforce or to your colleagues within your organization, but also protecting, and the common interest, right? There are more stakes that you need to look after from an IT admin perspective. And as an IT admin perspective, especially if you unaware or you don't know what is coming, right, from a security perspective or could come face at you. So you would like to take as much as control. So it's all about this fine balance. And I think you will never do this correctly. And especially, as Kees also mentioned, you have a broad scope of different type of colleagues within your organizations. Those who are very tech savvy and absolutely understand what is going on, and they also know or recognize potential risks. And those who are just the consumer of an application, and they don't consider anything like, well, they trust everyone and they think, well, that their data is in good hands. Yep. But it's more that as an organization, it's not only that you need to find a solution in technology and shielding off some parts of an application or an application entirely. It's also creating the awareness within your organization that people understand the possible implications of their actions.
Yep.
And of course, usability of the application you are providing or service.
Yeah.
Yes. Agreed. No, I agree. I think, all fair points. I think it's great that self-service is available, especially in Teams. There's more and more self-service coming, and you can start pick and choosing as a user, as a business unit. Like, hey, these are the kind of deployments that I need. But especially now there are more distributed workers. There's more. The workforce has been spread across the world. We need to be more mindful about cloud services or just on-prem services, doesn't really matter. But anywho, having said that, I think we can close Microsoft topic for today. I think this is the last one for Microsoft for now. So I want to, and Eric, pay attention. I want to switch gears. There you go, to our friends of Nutanix. Highly demanded, requested by Eric. Switching gears, there he is. This week, Nutanix hosted its annual .next conference, in which Nutanix CEO Rajiv Ramaswamy said cloud is not a place, but it's a concept. He said that public clouds can be wastefully expensive in places in which to run workloads, unless they're managed by Nutanix, so they can be returned to another environment at your convenience. Instead, Nutanix is making the case you should be able to repatriate workloads from the cloud when it makes sense to do so. And this is where Nutanix comes in, as their hybrid cloud enables customers to run in their cloud of choice or on-prem and can help customers make that transition. They also added a few things to its platform. So they enhanced their network virtualization to allow virtual private clouds that span multiple actual clouds. And in the future, they plan to add microsegmentation services to automate deployment of security policy based on workload behaviors. Now, don't think Nutanix is the only one singing this song. VMware is all about hybrid cloud lately, especially after their spin-off with Dell. AWS has their Outpost to run workloads at the edge. Microsoft's hybrid efforts are pushing Azure Stack. Now, this is an article from The Register. Again, this is a second article from The Register that I'm using. They call it an upstart, and I would say compared to the big names like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft, they are in fact the challenger. But I like what they're doing. Jits, what's your outside view on this one?
Yeah, first of all, did you notice the look in Kees's eyes when you, we're quoting Rajiv's words like, cloud is not a place, but a concept? I saw some proud there. So maybe it was just me. No, but I think as you said, right, the hybrid cloud approach and especially the multi-cloud approach, it's the only way forward. In the end, it doesn't really matter where your workload is running, whether that's at a hyperscaler or on premises, or when you're shifting between hyperscalers. I foresee a future where an IT admin on Friday evening gets a pop-up notification like, okay, next week, this workload, it's much cheaper to run at this hyperscaler, and you just approve the transitioning or the migration. So in the end, it doesn't really matter whether you're running on AWS, GCP, Azure, your own premises data center, or a barrel of red wine. As long as it's performing and it's got a GPU, just kidding.
It's got a GPU. Yeah, but also
you should create a song with that line. In the end, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, red wine.
I don't have my soundboard
will
prepared
end up
yet.
Right,
but
no, but
the
also
one
who wrote that song.
The point, being said by Rajiv, cloud is not a place; it's a concept. I do agree in a sense that cloud is a concept because it's consuming something as a service, and it really doesn't matter really shouldn't matter where it's hosted. And sure, it's in the end it's running on. I'm having so many song titles and lyrics in my head. Thank you, Case, for doing this. But it really shouldn't matter. I mean, Nutanix with Hyperconverged, it kind of started the on-prem cloud service-ish, trying to come up with new terms. But no, I get their point, and also it makes a lot of sense since, well, customers ask, and has asked for a couple of years, like, hey, how can I transition and switch between Azure, GCP, Amazon, whatever fits my need. Actually, I had a customer who said, like, hey, I want to switch by the day, depending on the cost, right? So it's just day trading because it's just, it's just a workload. So who's going to help me make that switch? So no, I totally get that. But Case, you're a Newton, you work at Nutanix. What's your humble, your candid feedback?
I want a thing in there as well. No.
Help us,
right.
Eric.
Yeah,
So Eric, you should do something with that singing. Stop.
I think it would be too early to stop your career in IT and start doing something in music. I think you need to practice.
Don't leave your day job.
Oh, you get one fan.
Only fans.
Good.
No.
Shall we?
Don't think so.
All right. So let's switch back to the topic, right? I think that what Jits was explaining is actually could be the reality of today already. If you look at the announcements that we've made, and obviously there are other parties in the world as well that claim something similar. But if you look at purely the Nutanix stack, as that's kind of my comfort zone, and that's where I feel allowed to talk to because it's my employer, I think that one of our first messages overall was making storage invisible, making infrastructure invisible, and now we moved on to making clouds invisible. And that's basically what I think that that is kind of the key to all of this messaging that we have, is that with cloud not being a place and seeing it as a concept, you can add an abstraction layer, which makes it irrelevant of where it's running, as long as it's performing. It's so it's performing. It's as efficient in cost as possible, and you've got the right rule set in terms of laws and kind of data locality in place. Now, if you have the tools to actually do that seamlessly, which I think we're well underway to actually get there. So we have compliancy tooling, cost analysis tooling. We have automation orchestration frameworks. And now with the recent developments, we also have native networking into public cloud, which allows you to span your on-prem environment into public cloud. So if you have the connectivity in place, you have data migration in place, you have orchestration automation in place, and you have the tooling to do cost analysis and making sure that you obey the laws and have the data locality available in that rule set. I think all of that will enable you to actually move workloads from one concept to another because you have that abstraction layer. And I like Mar said, I think that's the near future for a lot of companies. And that concept doesn't have to be public cloud. It can be private cloud as well, based on whatever kind of definitions you have in terms of cost and availability and RTO, RPO, and whatnot. But I do think that that's kind of the near future for a lot of organizations. I think that with the pandemic, kind of finally, we're getting back into control when it comes down to IT. I see a lot of companies kind of readjusting their cloud strategies from cloud first to actually making more sense in terms of where the workloads run. And again, I think that Nutanix made some great investment in terms of feature set and availability, and that enables our customers to actually achieve that in a much more efficient way.
Sounds good. And making clouds transparent, that is a sunny outlook for sure.
It's funny, though, you say making IT invisible and somewhat making it visible, because I want everything visible. But on the other side of the...
Well, I think that one of the concepts that we've been struggling with as an IT organization is the massive amount of layers that we have to stack on top of each other to actually deliver services. And that's where as a service comes into play, because that takes away a lot of that complexity, a lot of the layered stack that you need to typically need to manage if you have it on-prem or not as a service kind of delivery model. So if you can take away the complexity of managing storage, networking, and compute, and now take away the complexity of managing networking into public cloud, and actually kind of the complexity of public cloud as a concept as well, now we're making things visible. The things that would matter to a CIO or a CEO or even an IT manager or an admin, that's something that we can display. But all of the complexity, we're taking that away, making sure that we enable our customers to do the right thing, and that's focus on end user services. Yes, that doesn't have to be a desktop, right? It could be just about anything. It could be,
but it's also it's not just about technology, right? It's about the fundamental shift from moving from an SLA to an XLA. It's moving from, hey, we operate things on our own, into like, hey, I trust you to deliver a great service. So that shift, that mind shift, what that cloud should bring. I mean, if Nutanix is able to do it in a hybrid way, I think that sounds good. But let's not make this too much a Nutanix pitch today.
Well, maybe, well, not too much of a Nutanix pitch. I mean, we've been discussing Microsoft.
That wasn't really a pitch.
But yeah, no, sorry. No, but I'm just thinking like complexity and IT, and I'm just thinking what a massive amount of work in the background. Maybe in this particular example at Nutanix, right? But for all these organizations, tying all these APIs together, and also, well, you need to rely on all those APIs. That's a massive work, right? I mean, to build this as a service. I mean, building a stretched network or doing this with microsegmentation between different clouds. I mean, can you imagine the work being done there?
It wasn't me.
Well, it wasn't me either.
No.
But yeah, it's definitely it's definitely taken a big toll on our development department in a good way. As you said, it's even within clouds or public cloud vendors or hyperscalers or whatever you want to call them, you would see a diversity of API calls, right? So if you look at Azure, for example, one region will respond different than another. So that means that you have to create different API calls and different error handling for different regions, which makes this immensely complex. So I'm really proud of the team that does the networking stack within Nutanix for making this available.
And great start of .next. And there's actually more news shared at .next this week because Nutanix published a press release that stated that Nutanix and Citrix team up to power the future of work. And the two companies are announcing a strategic partnership through which they will provide access to applications, desktops, and data at any scale through Nutanix hyperconverged infrastructure and hybrid multi-cloud deployments of Citrix DaaS and virtual apps and desktop services. Now, part of the new partnership, it says that Citrix will be the preferred partner choice for enterprise and user computing solutions on the Nutanix cloud platform. And Nutanix will be a Citrix preferred choice for hyperconverged and hybrid cloud, multi-cloud solutions for Citrix virtual apps and desktops. The companies will also work together on go-to-market programs and enablement, product roadmaps, and customer support. What it doesn't say is, well, anything about Frame, which you could argue is a competitor of Citrix and the likes of AWS, Microsoft. And I think it's great to see that Nutanix provides some more clarity on when to use Frame, when to use Citrix, because that's been a big question mark ever since Nutanix acquired Frame in 2018. But where does that leave Frame? Case, you work at Nutanix, so I need to ask your opinion, and please don't hold back.
Well, as you probably can envision, I need to take a balanced approach here. But I think that making this announcement around a strategic partnership on both ends shows the level of trust that we have in each other's products. And when I talk about enterprise solutions as being stated in the partnership, I see that as more as a feature-wise than a size-wise discussion. So a lot of people, in my opinion, are mistakenly interpreting enterprise for large-scale customers, While I think that a smaller scale customer could still be in need of all of the enterprise features that a enhanced platform like Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktops or CVAD service would offer. So in my opinion, this offers a lot more clarity on when to position what, and it shows the value of the combined partnership, as I think that it's a combination of best of breed products. I think that CVAD service is the flagship of Citrix. It still is. And I think that HCI is a market that fits that need very well. And I also think that that Nutanix has the best product in that market. So having CVAD services combining with Nutanix's HCI for me is a no-brainer. It has been for the last 7 years.
Okay, but Frame?
I was just thinking.
Frame?
Yeah.
I mean,
The
there is
delicate
no
approach,
mention
right?
of Frame.
Let's put it in an iframe.
Wait.
I think that Frame fits a certain use case, right? So if you are a shop that needs desktops right away, that you're willing to rule out complexity in sake of speed and reduce functionality, I think that Frame is still a great option. Where we see Frame being positioned a lot successfully is in education, where they need a lot of labs, quick and disposable labs. That's where a solution like Frame really comes into play. So it has its place in the market. But overall, I think that when you're in need of enterprise features like advanced profile management, contextual remote access,
Image management,
flexibility in protocols, efficiency in terms of density, then CVAD service or CVAD would be the preferred choice.
Wait. Flexibility in protocols. Frames uses HTML5, which pretty much is everywhere, right?
So if you look at how Frame is delivering their desktop today, it's HTML5, but there's an agent as well. So it's not just, which, by itself is just a wrapper around the Chrome engine. So that is just an add-on to make it more easy to add specific features from a client perspective. Think about USB redirection, for example. Now, if you look at the protocol itself, Frame is based on H.264 encoding, moving towards H.265 or WebRTC in the near future. The thing is that with H.264 encoding and WebRTC to a certain extent, is that it doesn't allow you, or it's not really efficient when it comes down to encoding on the CPU, purely on a CPU, right? So Yitz will love this, but if you put in a GPU, you can offload the H.264, H.265, or WebRTC encoding to a GPU. Whereas if you don't have a GPU in the system, you're basically chewing away about 25% of your CPU capacity of whatever VM you have.
Yeah,
and that if you add that up in a larger scale environment, it might or might not break your ROI.
Here's the thing that keeps coming back to me, and I do think Frame is a great product, and as you explained, there are scenarios where Frame just probably is a better fit than other solutions. What keeps coming back to me is that Nutanix acquired Frame 2018, and there could be it could have been a very complementary product to Nutanix, not just in like the go-to-market, but also you guys have a hybrid cloud, right? It's on-prem, it's public cloud. You can bridge the gap, but it's not a complementary product. It's just a side business. And I haven't seen, it seems like from the outside view, there hasn't been much love for Frame in development and in go-to-market. So why should Nutanix keep Frame? Why not do the spin-off?
Hold on. Before you answer, or anyone answer the question.
No one's going to answer that.
No, but let me share a thought, right? I mean, we keep referring to Frame as a desktop as a service offering, right? From any hyperscaler and also on premises or in a hybrid approach. But of course, Frame is that's just the top of the service, right? The tip of the iceberg. Underneath, there is a whole mechanism of automation, orchestration, provisioning, and whatnot. This exact technology and all the knowledge that they have gained there is also the previous topic that we talked about, right? So it's not just the desktop that we're talking about and the remoting stack that we're talking about. It's also all this technology and all this knowledge around provisioning, automation, orchestration, and whatnot.
So to your assumption, they bought like intellectual property?
Of course, they bought intellectual property, but I'm pretty sure they reused a lot of knowledge there also to make this to make this vision really true. Like cloud is not a place; this is just a concept.
Good. Absolutely, we're using a lot of the tribal knowledge that the Frame team has around public cloud, around APIs. If you look at the way that we've built clusters in public cloud, which we discussed earlier in different podcasts. We're actually using Multi-Cloud Manager, which is a Frame product, if you want to say it like that, which actually allows us to reach out to whatever hyperscaler there is. And then based on the API knowledge base that we have, based on the Frame kind of acquisition that we did, we're able to quickly deploy a cluster into this hyperscaler. So it's much more than just the desktop and the broker and the remoting protocol. There's a whole stack behind that enables us to do that. And that's what you see being leveraged in that multi-cloud world. So, I get your point around spin-offs and whatnot, but I don't think that it's a realistic thought to leave all of the IP that we already are using in different products to kind of abandon that and just do something different. So
absolutely, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, not knowing this explains a whole lot about the acquisition and also the previous topic that we discussed. So let's close the topic of Frame if you guys are okay. I want to move on to another topic. Well, we are already on the topic of Citrix a bit. It feels a bit like we're covering the news from 2015 because Elliot Management, an activist investor with a certain reputation, is taking a second run with Citrix by taking a stake of roughly 10% in the software giant from Florida. In the previous run, 2015, indeed, they also got an activist stake in Citrix. They published a letter to the shareholders in which they said, like, hey, the stock price currently is around $50. I think you guys should go up to $100. There's value, we can make it happen. And they already had a plan ready to want to make it happen. As a result, one of the things that happened was a spin-off of GoTo. I'm only assuming that's because of Elliot. But during their engagement, the shares from Citrix, popped up from trading in the 50s to 150, which is roughly around the time that they actually left the board. So they've been away. Today, the shares trade between $100, $110, and Elliot Management is back. I have not seen a letter with their intentions yet. There are some rumors that Citrix is seeking a buyer. And full disclosure, I work for Citrix, and therefore I will not comment on this matter in any way. I have no insights, I do have opinions, and I'll keep them to myself for this time. Case, you submitted this topic. What is your view on this engagement?
So what I feel funny is that this is kind of enabling everybody to talk about Citrix again, takeovers and any other kind of plans of the evaluation of Citrix. And then I take a step back and look at what Citrix has achieved for the last, 30 years or so. Let that sink in. They're around for 30 years. They have been around for 30 years. They will be successful in certain times. And maybe at certain times they will be less successful. Elliot by itself has a reputation. We've seen them with Citrix before. We've seen them with EMC or Dell EMC before. I just think that we need to sit this one out and see whatever they're planning to do. I think the last time they went into Citrix and forced a spinoff of the GoTo range actually made sense to me. The suggestion to sell off the networking piece was less successful when you ask me. I think that's still one of the great things, the great product lines that Citrix has, because the NetScaler ADC is just something completely different from anything else that I've seen in that market. So while I get the need of talking about this, and I submitted this, but I submitted this more in a sense of why is this still news and why are we still talking about this? Just in a lot of companies, this is just business as usual, and I don't see that that there's a bad thing in Citrix finding a potential buyer. That just means that they're looking at making things better for themselves and for their customers, which is eventually beneficial for everyone.
I agree. And I'm not commenting on this specific thing from Elliot, but
this is going back like a couple of years, right? Every 2 years.
So we have a gem.
rumors.
So we have a global employee meeting every so many time. And I think one of the last ones, David Henschel, he got a question, so we can submit our questions, and typically the ELT answers. And the question submitted was, "Dear David, are we up for sale?" And he said, "Yes, we are.
Of course,
we are.
We always are.
We're a public traded company. We're always up for sale." And I think that's the perspective that working for a global company that is listed at wherever you're listed. That's just the way it is. So keep working on your value to your customers and your shareholder value, and you're good.
So the key question is, any advice on the stocks? Should we buy or?
No, yeah.
Insider trading. Yeah, no, sure.
Between 100 and 110, but as I just looked, they're suppressed 110, so they do good. Buy.
Yeah, it's ups and downs, and we'll see what happens. But yeah. Anyone else want to take a stab at Elliot? Or activist investors in general?
What, take a stab or a stab?
Whatever you want to do. Yeah, Starboard.
No, I'm good.
Things on them as well. No, okay, good. Good. This is a good moment to change our focus to the other virtualization giant from Palo Alto. So please join us in congratulating Kit Colbert with his new role at VMware. He is now the CTO. Yes, and with his 18 years plus experience. At VMware, he has basically seen it all. He started with enhanced debuggability in the VM kernel. He went to a principal engineer, moved on to chief architect of VMware Horizon Workspace, and later became the VP for the cloud platform. He surely seems like the ideal man for the job. And if I'm not mistaken, Kit started as an intern at VMware. So it's great to see that passionate people can progress their career to the highest level. And speaking of congratulations, a big congratulations to our very own Erik van Klaveren. I'm trying to pronounce your name in English, Erik. You recently switched to Microsoft, so in this role, Erik will be focusing on the digital and secure workspace based on Microsoft technology. Erik, with your passion for technology and of course the podcast, we're sure you'll be doing great at Microsoft. So all the best to all of you who have taken up a new challenge. And I think,
thank you.
Erik,
I guess.
No, congratulations.
Of course, man.
You made the decision. That's a great decision. Every decision you make, that's all good. I think we are already at the end. It's time to wrap up this episode of the EUCdigest ThrowDown. Thank you for sticking with us till the end. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to like the video on YouTube. Please do leave a comment. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have a topic that you'd like us to discuss in the next month, or just want to stay in touch, or maybe you want to be a host or you want to be a guest or have someone else that has to be a guest, reach out to us on the social channels or by email on podcast@eucdigest.com. For now, I want to thank you for listening. I wish you well, and we'll meet again in the next episode of the EUCdigest ThrowDown.